Mei was considered one of the strongest characters in the game in the previous patch, despite not really having any top-level representation or winning any majors. One thing I think the community has usually agreed on, though, is that she was arguably one of the more annoying characters to fight in the game, just by virtue of her kit with spamming dolphins. Combine that with a voice line, as well as a very weird RPS situation on block that was heavily in her favor, she could be a very controlling and frustrating character to fight. Arc System Works has definitely given her quite a few nerfs, but things are not all bad for the character, and there's probably some new tools that she has to play with. So, let's go ahead and get into some of the changes today. So, one thing that I do want to address is that in a leak video I posted, or a video talking about some things, it was speculated that Mei had reduced movement speed. Arc System Works does not report that in their list of changes. It seems like she moves exactly the same. She's just sort of always had like a slow walk speed, right? Her jumping and everything is still very much intact in the hands of a comfortable player. She's going to be able to move around just fine. They have not changed anything about her momentum itself. Getting into the first list of nerfs is that 6K has been reworked as a button. It is now very slow, 28 frames startup. This is incredibly reactable. This is going to be blocked. This is not the mix-up tool that it once was. But what it is now is that it is potentially a great meaty because it is plus on hit and on block, so you can combo out of it. You have to do particular normals for it, right? I mean, you know, again, speed comparison here real quick. No more really stealing rounds with this option coming out from the character. But there's a lot of other things going for it. It is special cancelable. How Mei is going to do that is another story because she's a charged character, right? Like, it's... I'm not quite sure how you're going to really be doing this option, because what special moves do you really have that you can use off of this? I'm not entirely sure. It is plus on block, so it can be used to reset her pressure. That's probably what's most likely going to be used for. She has lost that mix-up tool, but I mean, oh no, she has to tap dust now and do what she was doing before, but instead with tap dust instead of 6K. So that's generally all that change means for Mei. It does have, it triggers a crouching state on grounded hit, so it does force crouching. That means that it gets a better links out of it. Now, the other nerf to her is to her 6 heavy slash. So before, if you ever hit this normal, you got a ground bounce off of it, and that basically opened up a lot of combo routes and potential for the character. But now, the uncharged version no longer ground bounces. So that means a lot of things. You can't send out this move. You can still get a dolphin charge in if you're perfect timing with it, right? But it just means that you don't get as good combo routes as there were before. And you still get the ground bounce on fully charged hit. But, you know, that's more of like a combo filler tool rather than a combo starter tool overall. So that is yet another nerf. It also incurs more wall break value, so she's going to break the wall quicker using this move. So her combos that involve this attack are going to be a little shorter. Her J2 jump 2 heavy slash does have reduced knockback on hit. So you can see sometimes there I'm able to get a 2P, I'm not able to get a 2P sometimes, whereas here I'm usually able to pretty consistently get a 2P, it seems like. So there is that. There might also be some routes where you might throw that in into a combo route, and it might give you to something else. Not entirely sure about that one. You usually just see jump to heavy slash as like a mix-up tool, or at least like an approaching down tool. So she's probably able to get a little bit of pressure off of it. That's all good. And then, of course, there are the changes to her dolphin. This move is completely reworked. In addition to having increased damage scaling, reduced knockback on block, and reduce the rebound speed upon contact with the opponent. So, like, we will look at this real quick, right? So she gets hit. It takes her a little while to kind of pop out of it, right? Whereas, you know, before, it's fairly comparable there, but the big difference really you're going to see it is on block, right? So before, Mei would be pushed back to here, and it's a pretty far range. And because of that, she was able to play this RPS game where you could try to take your turn, but she would be able to press 6P and usually deal with your mid-range options that had that while using that head invulnerability. But now, if you block the Totsugeki, she is so much closer, close enough for Axel to get a close slash off, and now that basically means if she ever makes you block this move, she effectively gives up her turn. She's not able to play as aggressive RPS anymore, and that's good because that means there is just less dolphin span happening in the game. It seems like Arc System Works agree they didn't like that. She kind of has to commit to a backdash, and that's really like the extent of her defensive RPS options, it feels like. But in return, she does have a couple of things with it, right? She's able to do this jump cancel, right? By pressing the kick button during it, so now she has the ability to cancel out a dolphin with that. Additionally, instead of having to hold down the slash button to change the duration of the attack, she can instead press punch and instantly cancel it. So there are situations where she can do something like this. Right, so all of a sudden, you know, you do have a couple of options to be looking out for. She has to be very careful with this one. She's clearly negative when she does this, and she's relying on you respecting it. But if you're pressing 6P, you're probably going to catch her anyways, just because you're either 6Ping a dolphin or you're not, really, right? At a far range, this means she can potentially position herself to whiff punish you for that. So that is something to keep in mind. Like the RPS and how she has to play around this special are a little bit different. Because of that, the same thing applies to her heavy slash dolphin, where she can press the punch button to stop it. But out of it, she is also able to cancel, but it comes out fairly late, right? So she does have some options. You do have to be aware as Mei that there are some characters whose 6Ps just don't care what you do. They cover all options. Testament, looking at you. The Emperor of Strive. So that's something that you have to consider, right? So these are all massive changes and nerfs, and it kind of makes Mei a little less obnoxious overall. They increase the base damage scaling while ascending on her vertical dolphin as well. They changed the damage scaling on the horizontal dolphin. They've increased the blowback scale at combo scaling, so it should be making maybe a little more difficult to use this in some combos. They increased the risk level depletion, so that means it consumes more risk, which means your combo does less damage overall. Tons of things like that, and it sounds like, okay, well, Mangaka, it sounds like they've killed Mei. Well, yeah, they've nerfed her, but don't get me wrong, there are still some tools that she does have access to. Let me see if I can pull up one example from a friend of mine real quick. I am not a Mei player, so I'm not going to be able to demonstrate the combos myself, but we have our means around this, and that means would be something called the internet. So I'm going to turn this one off. We're going to boot this up right here. Full screen this. And this is something that you can kind of expect Mei to do. Don't forget, she does have that wild assault mechanic. And so she's still able to do quite a bit of damage. And she does have some other things. There's also some potential fooleries with her mix-up mechanic, right? No, I want the game capture back, please, and thank you. So don't forget, right, like, out of this kick dolphin, she does have her air action available to her, so there might be some new setups and things that Mei's can explore to get access to a little more complex mix-ups than she had before. We will have to see how Mei stands in this patch, but she's not going to be played the same way that she was before.